You've been diagnosed with ADHD. You take the medication. It helps a little, but something still feels off. You can't focus. You forget things. You're always late. Your brain feels like a browser with 47 tabs open. Your therapist says ADHD. Your psychiatrist says ADHD. Reddit says, welcome to the club. But then one day you stumble across a video. A doctor named Gabor Maté says something that stops you cold. What we call ADHD is often not a genetic disorder. It's a response to early developmental trauma. Wait, what? You read that again? And again. Your entire identity just shifted. This video is going to be controversial. Some of you will leave angry, others will cry, but stick with me. Because the question isn't ADHD or trauma. The question is, why does nobody want to talk about how they overlap? Let me show you something that will mess with your head. These are the symptoms of ADHD. Can't focus, impulsive, restless, forgetful, emotional dysregulation. Now, these are the symptoms of complex PTSD. Can't focus, impulsive, restless, forgetful, emotional dysregulation. Yeah, exactly. They're identical. How's that possible? Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, author of The Body Keeps the Score, says, "Hype, we misdiagnose trauma as ADHD all the time, especially in children. Here's why. Trauma fragments your attention. It makes you hypervigilant, always scanning for danger. You're in math class, but your body is listening for footsteps in the hallway, your dad's car pulling into the driveway, the shift in your mom's tone. Your teacher says, pay attention, but you are paying attention. Just not to the math. This is why Gabor Maté asks a question nobody else does. What happened to you? Not, what's wrong with your brain? But here's where it gets complicated. And this is the part that's going to upset people. Maté is not saying ADHD doesn't exist. He's saying we can't separate the brain from its environment. A baby's brain doesn't develop in isolation. It develops in relationship, in safety, or in the absence of safety. Maté studied thousands of ADHD patients. He noticed a pattern that made him question everything. He found that the vast majority, over 80%, had experienced early adversity, emotional neglect, inconsistent caregivers, chronic stress in the home, not abuse, not always trauma with a capital T, but what he calls the absence of the necessary. A parent who was physically present but emotionally unavailable, a mother dealing with her own depression, a father working 80-hour weeks. The child's nervous system is screaming, am I safe? Am I loved? And getting silence. Maté says, ADHD is not a disease. It's an adaptation, a survival mechanism. Your brain learns, I can't rely on my environment for safety, so I'll just stay hyper-alert forever. This is why stimulant medication helps. It's not fixing a chemical imbalance. It's giving your brain enough dopamine to feel safe enough to focus. Now, before the comments explode. Let me be clear. Maté is not saying ADHD is all in your head. He's not saying, just heal your trauma and you won't need meds. He's saying, the brain is shaped by experience, and we need to stop pretending it isn't. Here's what the research actually shows, and this is going to surprise you. You can have genetic predisposition to ADHD and have trauma make it worse. Both can be true. Stephen Porges, polyvagal theory guy, says, genetics loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger. So if you grew up in chaos, your genetic vulnerability gets activated. But if you grew up safe, that same gene might stay dormant. This is called epigenetics. Your genes don't change. But whether they're expressed, that's shaped by your life. Let me tell you about two kids, same ADHD genes, completely different outcomes. Kid A, stable home. Parents notice the ADHD traits early. They adapt, create structure, validate struggles. Kid learns to manage symptoms. Kid B, chaotic home. Parents are overwhelmed. They yell, "Why can't you just focus?" Kid internalizes, "I'm broken." Fast forward 20 years. Kid A has ADHD but manages it. Kid B has ADHD plus complex PTSD, plus shame, plus a nervous system that never learned safety. Same genes, different environments, different lives. This is what Maté is trying to tell us. Okay. Now for the question that's going to make people uncomfortable. If trauma can look like ADHD, how many people are being medicated for pain, not neurodivergence? Maté says, we're giving children speed to help them tolerate intolerable environments. And that sentence should make you pause. He's not anti-medication. He takes meds himself. But he's asking, why are we only treating the individual and not the system? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Fixing your brain is profitable. Fixing society? Not so much. But, and this is important, medication saves lives, including mine. This isn't about demonizing meds. It's about asking, can we do both? Treat the individual and change the environment. Okay, you're probably wondering, so which one do I have? Let's do a thought experiment. Think about your symptoms, your ADHD. Now answer this. Do you struggle to focus on boring tasks? Or do you struggle to focus when you feel unsafe? ADHD can't focus on boring. Trauma can't focus when triggered. Are you impulsive with everything? Or just when you're emotionally flooded? ADHD is chronic. Trauma is triggered. Do you forget things randomly? Or do you dissociate when overwhelmed? If your answers lean toward when I'm triggered, when I'm flooded, when I'm unsafe, you might be looking at trauma, not ADHD or plot twist. You might have both, and that's okay too. So what do you do with this information? 3 things. 1, don't throw away your diagnosis. Even if it's incomplete, it might still be useful. 2, ask the Maté question, what happened to me? Not, what's wrong with me? 3, work on both. Meds for the ADHD, therapy for the trauma, body work for the nervous system. Because here's the truth Maté teaches. You're not broken. Your brain adapted. And what adapted once can adapt again. Your ADHD symptoms might soften when your nervous system feels safe, or they might not. And both outcomes are valid. This video is going to get comments like, you're invalidating ADHD, or you're invalidating trauma. And honestly, good. We need to talk about this. Not to pick sides, but to see the full picture. Drop a comment, ADHD, CPTSD, or both. No judgment, just curiosity. Because the more we share, the less alone we feel. And isolation? That's where shame thrives. Maté says, the question is not why the addiction, but why the pain. I'd add, the question is not why the ADHD, but why the chaos. Your brain is not defective, it's responding. The question is, responding to what? And once you know what it's responding to, you can start to change the signal. Neuroplasticity is real. Your brain built these pathways. It can build new ones. Safety, connection, regulation. These aren't just therapy buzzwords. They're the soil your brain needs to heal. Whether you're ADHD, traumatized, or both, you're not stuck. You're adapting. And you can adapt toward thriving, not just surviving. Thank you for staying, for questioning, for being willing to see complexity. That's courage.